All right. Hi, everyone. This is Doug with Comevo, and we're going to start on time and end on time with this webinar. And thank you very much for investing a half hour of your day to learn about this very important topic of speak the generational language of your students in online orientation. And really, this can be expanded to any communication that you have with your students. We initially kind of branded this as speak the millennials generation, but as you all know, Gen Z is the one that's really in place now. Millennials are kind of those non-traditional students. So if you're at a community college, you've probably seen more of that generation, or even probably some Gen X's kind of in and out of your institution. So really appreciate your time here. We will end this on the bottom of the hour. And we will record this webinar, and a link and an email will automatically be sent to you as an attendee. So you can review this webinar at a future date and or pass it on to others. I do want to draw your attention over to the question area where you can post questions for myself or my guest partner, who I will introduce here in a couple slides. So if you have any questions, fire them in. If we don't have time to catch it at the end, we will definitely address those on a one-by-one basis, so you get what you need addressed. All right, so I'm assuming everyone can see and hear, and we are recording. So let's go ahead and move this slide forward. So our overview is, I'm going to turn off our cameras here a second here. We're going to cover introductions. And then we're going to define what it is, what we're talking about, which is student-centered language. Student-centered language. And we're going to go through some examples of what we mean by this. And then we're going to leave you with a process with some Q&A. All right. So this is me. Hey, Mia, would you mind just kind of hiding your camera for a second? I think it's covering some slides.
I gotcha.
There we go. Okay. So this is me talking, Doug Sawyer. I'm the VP of Sales here at Comevo. My contact information, there's lots of ways to do that, a phone or email or through the website. I've been here at Comevo for about 5 years now. I've probably done about 500 demos over the years. Apologize for the photo. It looks like a Match.com photo. I need something a little more professional. But what we've got here with me is a lot of experience doing demos with schools, university and community college. And also, I'm a university lecturer. So I've kind of been on that academic side of things. And this topic and talking to Mia, who I'll introduce here next, really caught my attention because I think there's a gap in this area from what I've seen out there with how schools are communicating with their students and kind of what lens they're using. Right, so moving on to Mia, there's no one better to introduce Mia than Mia Reisweber herself. So Mia, why don't you tell us who you are?
Sure. So my name is Mia Reisweber. I am currently a new student programs coordinator at Texas A&M University, Central Texas. We are located just north of Austin. I'm currently pursuing my PhD in higher education administration, specifically at looking at curriculum design, is because if you look at my master's, I come from the teaching side of the house. So once upon a time, I was supposed to be an English teacher for 7th through 12th graders, and my lifestyle just wasn't conducive to that. I was more of, I found we move around a lot. My husband's military, so teaching at the collegiate level was kind of where I really found my love and my passion for teaching, and for teaching writing, and so just about almost 2 years ago, I transitioned off of the faculty side of the house where I was teaching literature and research and writing, and I moved over to student affairs, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. Well, thank you. And it's that blend of background that really, I think, leads us right into this this topic. And Mia, thank you for supporting your husband for his service in the military. I want to make sure that you have our support there too. All right, so Mia, I'm going to make you the presenter here. And you can share with us some of your slides. Let's see. There you go.
Absolutely.
So wondering if, so I see your screen now, we're looking good. So I wonder if you could just kind of kick us off with the definition. What are we talking about? What is student-centered language?
Sure. So student-centered language is something that I focused on when I'm teaching and when I'm building curriculum in a classroom. And it is language that is making sure that the students are really the main audience, that the students feel most important and most relevant to what we're saying. And so in a classroom, you know, when we're talking about students, sometimes we use the second person, which is a great kind of example, and is what I've done here, and kind of the point of student-centered language. It's bringing them in, so second person, reaching back into our high school English days, would be using the word you. So student-centered language kind of puts you, the receiver of the message, at the forefront of what it is that we're talking about, and making sure that the you is really the subject, if we're going to talk subject predicate, the subject of the sentence. And so that is what student-centered language, kind of in a very condensed way, would look like.
Got it. Boy, you're taking me right back to grammar school, using the second person language here. So how did this topic come into focus for you? When did it hit your radar?
Right. So it kind of, my education is from Bard College, which is a small liberal arts school in upstate New York. And that was really the foundation of the pedagogy there, the understanding of how to teach, teaching how to teach. And so then this has kind of just been how I have kind of tackled everything I've done since I graduated with my master's. And so that when I got to Texas A&M University, Central Texas, and I was tasked with taking a look at our online orientation program, one thing that stuck out to me as a reader and a writer is that the language wasn't student-centered. And so that was very quickly apparent. And so I came on board last year, September 1st. And I think in my very first meeting with my supervisor, I said, look at the, like, the way that this is structured is not putting students at the center of the orientation. And, you know, student-centered language is not something, we talk about the language, it takes us back to grammar school, but when we're talking about student affairs professionals, I think all of us would agree that we want, you know, we will all say we're student-centered. We want to put the students at the center of what we do. And so what better way to mirror that than to make it as part of our language when we're talking about something like an online orientation.
Yep, that makes sense. So we're talking about the generations here too, and the you is a couple different generations. So how would you characterize these generations that are enrolled right now? Yeah, so for kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot of A&M Central Texas. So we are the newest, we're the newest university in the A&M system. So for those of you who are joining us who are familiar with the Cal system or SUNY system in New York, or you know, Missouri University system, like A&M is its own system. And so our university was founded in 2009. It's in Central Texas, and our area, we are the only public university between Austin and Dallas, which is about a 5-hour stretch. And so when we're looking at who our students are, we're talking about students who in our rural area of Texas. They're a lot of community colleges that serve students, but then we also have a huge military population, and Fort Hood is our military installation. We are literally bordering Fort Hood grounds on our campus, and we have a lot of soldiers who are transitioning out of the military. There's a Green to Gold program that helps soldiers transition out and go to school, or they go to school to become officers. So they move from the enlisted rank to the officer rank. And so our generations are very extensive. We've got students who
are coming out of high school, and we have a lot of students who are coming back to school for the first time. And so looking at both of those generations when we're talking about the U, it's important to kind of say, hey, look, you know, there are students who are at our university to get their degree and to move on. It's a means to an end. And so we're trying to work with them to engage them in co-curriculum and work with them on making sure that they feel that their time is most efficient, because for them, you know, first priority is family, second is job, third might be school, or it might be family, army, job, school. And so the opposite is true when you look at, you know, some late millennials or early Gen Z that are coming straight out of college, where their primary focus is to be here and they want the college experience. And so those U's are, you know, when we're looking at second person, are just, they span the gamut. I think we one day we were just kind of candidly talking in the office and said, I think there are 4 generations of people here at any given time. And so
creates quite a challenge when you're trying to talk about the who.
Absolutely.
Right. And so do you have any examples that you can share about how schools have been communicating with students, and then what adjustments that you've made?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you a little bit, and you've been staring at our welcome screen on our new student orientation here for a good 6 minutes. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how we used to kind of look at how we used to communicate with our students, and then kind of where we moved on from there. And so, you know, when I stepped into this position, and when I was looking on Comevo too at some of the examples of how you know, how do other institutions set up their online orientation? This is something that I didn't have when I was in college, or you know, I might have, but I didn't ever participate in. So what does this look like? And so some of the examples that you'll see, I'm gonna pop you over to how this becoming a warrior section. So when I first came on board, this section was called the business office. And right up here on the screen, this little red tab, it said business office, which is absolutely a crucial office that our students need to know about. That's where they can, you know, pay their tuition fees. If they have a refund, which is always a lovely day in the semester, they can pick it up there. It's where they get their, you know, ID cards or parking passes and things like that. And it's important to know where the business office is. And so that, and then you can kind of guess subsequently that the next area or whatever was, you know, financial aid, and then the next area was student affairs, and the next, so it kind of broke it up by offices. And if you look at some, you know, we had a college of business and a college of arts and sciences and a college of education, because they're all colleges within our university. And so you see this a lot in websites, you see this a lot in orientations, that we break it up by what makes sense to us at the university level, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our audience is receiving that message and that they fully understand, you know, what is the business office, or, you know, why is this important to me? Or, you know, my degree, I just want to study social work. Like, where am I going to find social work? What college is that in? And so if we make those adjustments to thinking about who our audience is and how we can better communicate that message to them rather than what makes sense to us, then I think that we're going to communicate with them a little bit more effectively.
And that makes a lot of sense when you say it that way. So what this is your Comevo module. Have you made these changes on any other communication to the students?
Other communications to students, yeah, I'm actually starting yesterday. I've joined the marketing and communication team that they have here to kind of look at how we connect with new students on our new student landing page, for example. How we're pushing out, you know, hard copy material to our students, mailing things and whatnot. looking at our social media presence and what messages are being put out about our university. What the cool thing is we're young, so we don't we're not fighting tradition on our end, because most of what we're about to do or are doing has not been done before, so we are setting that precedent. However, when we look at other institutions, I mean, a lot of we're modeling it off other institutions, and I think sometimes we need to have those intentional conversations about who our audience is specifically versus what makes sense to us as the marketing people or the university.
And I appreciate that you're taking a universal look at this, because it is a global experience from your student side. And I think they'll recognize where it's spotty. If they see it being consistent, they'll appreciate it and just know that, hey, the school's really got it together. They're talking to me. But I love that you're kind of spreading it out. So if you're someone attending this webinar, and this is kind of like a light bulb moment for you, like, I need to look at my content. So what process or tips would you give to people attending this webinar to approach this kind of a project?
Yeah, so, some kind of tangible things you can walk away with. So first is, when you're looking, if you just want to make those small changes, take a look at your sentence structure. And so you're going to feel like you're in an English class for a second, and I apologize, but bear with me. This is my very first love and passion. So if you take a look at even look at these, like the implied, if these were sentences, they're implied sentences. There is an implied receiver, like becoming a warrior. If you ask yourself, who is becoming a warrior? A warrior is our mascot, obviously. It's the students, right? Or excuse me, who is taking this orientation? It's the students. It's you. There's an implied you there. And so when in organizing our content, I was intentional about how to group kind of the resources and services that they would need, so that there was an implied you when they clicked on each of these things. Okay. Another thing you can do in actually your sentences and sentence structure is, making the you the subject of your sentence, the true subject of your sentence. So for here you have, you're already on the right track by taking our online orientation. So this is really great, like in terms of making the you part of or the center of orientation. There's almost like a narrative for each of these sites, and I've pulled up a few of them. Before you begin classes, you make sure you pick up your parking permit in the business office. So again, like the first thing that they're seeing is something that is talking directly to them. And so that's something that you can walk away with. Just take a look at that sentence structure and see how many of your sentences on your publication material, your social media, your web presence, or your online orientation. Take a look and see what the subject of the sentence is. If it's you're on the right track. If it's the business office offers you parking permits, then see how far into the writing or into the reading that the student has to do before they become part of it. And then ask yourself, is that engaging for them? Is that something that they're going to want to continue reading if they don't show up until later on in the writing?
Now, we're talking about some of the generations like Gen Z, the like things that are efficient, digestible pieces, everything kind of packaged up. I see you using bullet points. So are you in your structure? Is it more in the structure that you're catering to the generations, or actually how you're writing the prose of your content?
I think it's important, right? In English, we say that form is an extension of content, and so it's hard to speak to two different generations, but I think being intentional about who the recipient is where you're going to be successful. So for example, you pointed it out, we have bulleted points. My personal rule of thumb, and I know I didn't come up with this, I know it's a lot of people's personal rule of thumb, is that if you have to scroll more than twice, you've lost them, right? I mean, how many of us don't want to pay for the New York Times app, right? So we read the headlines or the first few sentences of the article, so we don't max out our New York Times, article. So I think the same thing goes here, is that they don't want to scroll for for multiple scrolls. They want it in bite-sized information. The other thing is you have to keep it relevant to them. So for our older generation, they want to know, how does this apply to me so that I can quickly get set up so I can take my classes and get what I need to get done? Like, how does this help me as quickly as possible?
Right.
Technically, I mean, really, our Gen Z and our millennials have the same need, right? I need to do this as quickly as possible. I think, our latest generation has a attention span of like 6 seconds, and it's like 2 seconds less than a goldfish, right? So we need to get them our information as quickly as possible. So you can also do that in the writing, though. So I do this right here. I'm gonna kind of highlight it for you. I hope you can see that I'm highlighting, but it says, keep in mind, distance learners will need to park in 2-hour parking or pick up a temporary parking pass if they come to campus to use services and resources and they didn't pick up their pass in the first place. This is an easy way to give a, for example, like, why do I need this pass? To make it relevant to our students. So for our distance learners, they're going to see, oh yeah, I might need to come to campus to use the library, or, you know, do something. I meet with a professor on campus. So even though I'm not on campus all the time, I should probably pick up my parking permit. It kind of makes it relevant to them. Same thing for our you know, Gen Z students, though most of them are on campus. Giving them a reason for why they might need that service is going to help them kind of store it away into maybe a more permanent memory, versus just, as most of us know with orientation, just drinking from the fire hose and dumping the information they don't find immediately relevant to them.
Yeah, thank you. That really hits home for me. All right, anything else to share with us, or you want to pass it back?
I will pass it back to you.
All right. Swapping the football here. All right, show my screen. So we've met Mia. So some things on the software side. So the other part of this webinar is talking about Comevo's launch, online orientation software. So I'm just going to show you some software elements and features that will really help you achieve this goal of really kind of personalizing and speaking the language of your audience. An easy thing is called merge tags. You may have done this with mail merges or something like that. So at the login, we can have your SIS software push us the student's first name, and you can reuse and repurpose that first name throughout the module. So for big schools trying to keep the feeling a little more small and community, this is a really easy way for a student not to feel like a student ID number. They're a person and they matter individually. And small schools are small for a reason, because they really want to protect that. So that's a real easy thing you can do within the Comevo software, and our customer care team will teach you how to do it. Another feature I love, this is one of my favorite ones, it's all about profile-based content. So providing relevant information to the student at the right time is really the equation for keeping them engaged. And so kind of like a choose your own adventure book you may have read as a kid, it's like that. Students can have different journeys, adventures, or paths through the content based on who they are or how they answer these questions. And we've got another new feature called Navigate, where based on the input from the student, you can determine what content they're going to see next, kind of maybe in an advisory way, or to capture acknowledgments to campus policies. I'm sure the legal team will love you if you have that. And of course, is the ability to control your own content. And this is really the heart and soul of it. You don't have to have ITS program it. You don't have to send us emails for changes. You'll have the ability as a Comevo partner to be able to control your content, swap out images, add videos, and change your text, which is a large part of what we were talking about here. We do have while you guys are on the phone here, we do have a new software service called Discover that's really designed to reduce the need to address repetitive questions on your side. But again, from the student-centered side, you can control how the questions have been asked and how they're answered, so that you're still speaking to that specific student, not so much as being school-centric, but student-centric. So this is a neat new tool that we are just now launched. So if you want to learn about it, give us a ring. So a little bit about Comevo. So we've been doing online orientation software at least since 1999 and partnered with over 150 colleges and universities across the U.S., including Texas A&M systems. So we're very proud of that partnership. And the Comevo difference is really kind of this triad. It's the intersection of efficient functionality, software that's easy to use, and has aesthetic appeal. All under the umbrella of trying to streamline communications, really about you and your students. And Comevo is trying to bridge that gap with communication tools that achieve these three elements. So I'm going to leave this slide up, and we're going to address some questions that have come up. And so this will give you a chance. And Mia, you were okay with people contacting you if they had any questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Perfect. All right. So, and the same with me too. If you have any questions about what we do, that I'd be happy to address those. So the first question, Mia, this looks like one for you. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase this a little bit. So how do you maintain consistency of message? It's kind of like what you're talking about when the other departments control the other sections or that other communication?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's certainly something that we have. We've had this challenge come up because, from a writer perspective, or from with my background, it's important that you have that consistent tone, right? If someone writes a certain way, people are going to be able to tell from like module to module. So. What I did, and it's a little bit time consuming, but it's definitely worth it for your students, is to sit down with each stakeholder who is represented in a module, whose information is represented with your new student orientation, and get from them what information they believe is most relevant coming from their department. So you work with them on their most up-to-date information. You set times that you're checking back with them when you're doing the edits for your orientation multiple times over the year. Make sure all information is correct. But then you as the writer, you as the editor of the orientation, it's your job to be the narrator. So when we were thinking back kind of to the slides, at the top of each slide, for me, the consistency is that I have this little conversational blurb about what information is about to come on that page. And that's me making sure that the writing is student-centered. The bullet points are all coming from the other offices. That's their information. But you get to be this narrator telling the story throughout orientation, and you become familiar to your students. They trust you as the voice, as the narrator of the story, and then you can have that consistency from page to page, regardless of the information that's being shared.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm going to show our cameras here. You want to turn yours on, and we can say hi to everybody really at the end here. The other question I wanted to address, there you are, hi. There is probably on the Comevo side, maybe this came in before we covered that last topic, because it was all about, well, what can Comevo do to help students transition to this approach? And I understand that some schools are just very, very impacted and busy. So in addition to the merge tags and some of the features I already displayed for you, Comevo does have an optional side business. Part of the service that we provide of doing content production. So if you want one of our writers to go through your content, work with your team, and flip that lens around to be student-centered with your language, or even just provide input, that's something that Comevo would be happy to do. We also do, video production, et cetera. But our writing team are former higher ed counselors and advisors, so they have context about where you're coming from, and would be happy to help you out in those areas. All right. Hey, we got 15 seconds left. Mia, any final thoughts for everyone out there?
If you have any questions whatsoever, you want to reach out to me, please feel free. I am more than happy to collaborate with you, or talk through something to tease an idea out, or just touch base with you if you want a quick grammar lesson. Though I would plug Purdue OWL if you wanted a even quicker one.
You're awesome. You're such a rising star in the world of higher education and student affairs. I really appreciate your time, Mia. And everyone, I appreciate your time attending this webinar. Again, I'll send out the email with the link to the recording. And if you have any questions, please reach out to any of us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. Thanks.